start off, as you might expect, with a number of updates from the Middle East. And I can tell you that the Secretary General is very concerned about the increasingly toll on civilians that we're seeing across the immediate region. Beirut residential areas, as you know, were once again subjected to intense overnight Israeli airstrikes, apparently injuring rescue workers. Also, strikes continued unabated in other parts of Lebanon. The toll on civilians from this campaign is totally unacceptable. All parties must do whatever they can at all times to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure and ensure that civilians are never put in harm's way. The UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon, Jeannine Hennis-Plasschaert, persists with her intensive political engagements, where the UN country team is working closely with the Lebanese government to meet the spiraling humanitarian needs. Given the worsening humanitarian needs, Imran Riza, the UN resident humanitarian coordinator for Lebanon, today announced an additional $2 million from the Lebanon Humanitarian Fund to address the deteriorating situation, bringing the total allocation to $12 million so far. This comes alongside the $10 million Central Emergency Response Fund allocated very recently. Meanwhile, on the health front, the World Health Organization announced today that the first flight with WHO medical supplies, enough to treat tens of thousands of injured people, has arrived in Beirut. More flights are planned for today and in the coming days. This all comes as the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tells us they remain concerned about the safety and well-being of civilians as the country experiences a surge in airstrikes and displacement orders. There were new orders given by the Israelis for this in the south for areas above the Litani rivers and areas such as El Bus, which hosts a Palestinian refugee camp, that force families to flee from areas previously considered safer. Civilians on both sides of the blue line in Lebanon and in Israel must be allowed to live in peace and tranquility. And also, I had been asked by some of you about the issue regarding migrant workers in Lebanon. I can tell you that our colleagues from the International Organization for Migration tell us that many of Lebanon's 177,000 migrants, including many female migrant domestic workers, have now been forced to flee in search of safety, but face limited shelter options. Just moving to the peacekeeping force, so you heard quite a bit about it yesterday from Jean-Pierre Lacroix. Our peacekeepers say that within their area of operations, they're still observing intense airstrikes and heavy clashes. Significant exchange of fire are occurring in Sector West, particularly in Maroun al-Ras, Yarun, and Bint Jubail, and in Sector East, focusing on Khiam Kafr Kila and Adaise areas. UNIFIL peacekeepers are continuing to remain in position despite the very dangerous environment, while the intensity of fighting hampers their movements and their ability to undertake the full range of their mandated tasks. As Mr. Lacroix told you yesterday, the safety and security of our peacekeepers is paramount priority, and it is a shared responsibility for all parties. The mission reiterates its call both for an immediate de-escalation and for the parties to immediately return to a cessation of hostilities and the full implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701. Turning to the West Bank, I can tell you that the Secretary General is deeply alarmed by the deteriorating situation there, including last night's Israeli airstrike on the Tulkarm refugee camp, which reportedly killed 18 Palestinians, including children, and injured many others. He strongly condemns the loss of life. This attack marks yet another dangerous escalation of the violence. The Secretary General calls for strict compliance to international law. Civilians and civilian infrastructure must be protected at all times. He urges the international community to urgently come together to address this escalating cycle of violence and work towards ending occupation and returning to a track for the two-state solution, which remains the only just and lasting resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The bloodshed that we are seeing must end. Also, further to the Tulkarm attack, I can tell you that colleagues from OCHA are coordinating a visit to the area by both UN agencies and partner NGOs, where they will carry out an assessment of the damage and humanitarian needs to inform the emergency response efforts. Turning to Gaza, OCHA on Wednesday visited the site of an attack the previous night in the Man area east of Khan Yunis. Our colleagues report that ambulances trying to evacuate the injured could not reach them due to the ongoing incursion. Hours later, when first responders were finally able to access the area, their bulldozer ran out of fuel while recovering bodies from beneath the rubble. OCHA stresses that emergency teams in Gaza need to be able to save lives, and to do that, they need more fuel, they need more equipment, but most importantly, they need safe and unimpeded access to the areas where they need to be. Meanwhile, our colleagues at UNRWA said that yesterday 3 of its schools were hit over the previous 2 days. Some 20,000 people had been sheltering there, and more than 20 people were reportedly killed. UNRWA said that since the war began, more than 140 of its schools have come under attack. The agency stressed that schools are not a target and cannot be used for any military purposes by anyone. The new assessment this week by UNICEF and humanitarian partners found that at least 87% of schools in Gaza have been school buildings in Gaza have been directly hit or damaged since the October of last year, including 1/3 of UNRWA schools. And you've been asking us about the next rounds of polio vaccination. The World Health Organization has told us that they have requested Israel to begin the second phase on October 14th. The agency expects these efforts to conclude on the 29th of October. WHO says discussions with the Israeli authorities are continuing, as well as the Ministry of Health and partners on the ground. Turning to Haiti, given the violence that we have seen, the Secretary General strongly condemns the attack by armed gangs in the town of Pont-Sondé in the Artibonite department that took place yesterday. The attack left several dozen people dead, including women and children, injured many more, and resulted in the displacement of at least 3,000 people. As gang violence continues to spread from the capital to other departments of Haiti, the Secretary General stresses the importance of the joint efforts undertaken by the Haitian National Police and the Multinational Security Support Mission. Those efforts need to be supported. Secretary General urgently appeals to all member states to ensure that the Multinational Security Support Mission receives the financial and the logistical assistance they need in order to succeed. Our Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed arrived this morning in Lesotho, where she represented the Secretary General at the bicentenary celebration of the founding of the Basotho Nation. Congratulating the country on its 200th anniversary, she expressed hope for the next 200 years and conveyed the United Nations commitment's continued collaboration for the prosperity of the people of Lesotho. In the afternoon, Ms. Mohammed joined the inauguration of a multi-purpose center for survivors of gender-based violence alongside the Queen of Lesotho. The center will help survivors reclaim their future. Tomorrow, she will visit the Lesotho Highlands Water Project in Polihali and Pitso to observe how large-scale investments can drive sustainable development and a just energy transition. She will also there engage with local communities, highlighting the importance of their involvement in the decision-making process. While in the country, she will meet with His Royal Highness King Letsi III, the Prime Minister Matekane, as well as cabinet ministers, to discuss opportunities related to Lesotho's sustainable development and the UN's commitment to supporting the country's reform agenda. Ms. Mohammed will also meet with the UN country team and other stakeholders, including the diplomatic community, traditional leaders, and young entrepreneurs. She will be in Johannesburg in South Africa as of Sunday morning. As you will have seen, the Security Council met this morning for a briefing on Nord Stream under the agenda Threats to International Peace and Security, as requested by the Russian Federation. There was no Secretariat briefer. Turning to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, our peacekeeping colleagues are working alongside the authorities to provide support to those impacted by yesterday's sinking of a ferry on Lake Kivu. Our colleagues have provided medical assistance to survivors at the request of the Congolese government, and the mission's Bangladeshi helicopter battalion has been conducting aerial patrols since yesterday in a search for survivors of the horrific accident. We join the head of the UN peacekeeping mission in the Congo, Bintou Keita, in offering our sincere condolences to the families affected by this tragic accident. The boat, named the Merveille de Dieu, was carrying passengers from Minova in South Kivu to Goma in North Kivu.